With Siyata D'Shmaya, we're heading now into the Yortzeit of our beloved Rabbi Emeritus Echat Tzadik Livracha, Harav Rafal Pelkovitz, Azat Sal, and we like to be Makir Tov to his Choshev Rebitz and Shirley Pelkovitz, sponsoring the Shir in memory of her dear husband, the Rav Rafal Ben Harav Ephraim Zatzal. I want to thank as well Ruchi and Yossi Lazar for sponsoring the Shir in memory of her mother, Anna Weltz, Chana Bas Moshe Yehuda, Aleha Shalom, these heilige neshama shmizacha to a tremendous and continuous aliyas and neshama, and Gan Eytan Shamayla Mei'ah Achayil Be'ezah Hashem Yisbarach. I want to mention as well of those who are Nedive Yom, Legabi the Mishnayis, Plax Yusva Ben Yeshayin Avtoli Hertz, Binyamin Ben Eliezer, Avram Meir Ben Mordechai, Aleim Shalom. Yet again, these holy neshama shmizach v'siyata d'shmaya. It's a continuous aliyas and neshama, and Gan Eytan Shamayla Mei'ah Achayil Be'ezah Hashem Yisbarach. Baruch Ato Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Shehakol Nehiyeh Bidvaro. Amen. So on the Indian of Brachos, we turn with Siyata D'Shmaya to this week's Parsha, Parshas Pekudai. And we have what seems to be just a regular, ordinary pasuk, but of course we know there's no such thing as just a regular, ordinary pasuk. And there are so many Sisrei Torah, so many Ramazim that are always peeking beneath the surface. So let's take a look at what seems to be a regular pasuk, Parshas Pekudai. Perak Lam Neches Pasuk of Zayin Vehi Ma'as Kikar HaKesef. You had the 100 talents of silver, Latsekes Es Adonai HaKodesh, to cast those sockets for the purpose of the Mishkan, Ves Anei HaParoches, and for the Adonim that were needed, upon which the Paroches was hanging as well. Ma'as Adonim Ma'as Kikar La'oden Sach HaKol. You had Ma'as Adonim, you had 100 of these sockets that were there to serve to be Maimed, the Kroshim of the Mishkan. All right, it's the Baal Turim. What's Ma'as Adonim Keneged Miyusodim Al Adonai Paz? The Shalom Achraitz and Shir Shirim Perakei Posek Tezvav Miyusodim Al Adonai Paz. The Hainu, the whole Indian of the Mishkan. We have the Remez over here. What's the basis? What's holding it all together? The Adonai Paz. These Gavaldiga choice gold. In this case, it was silver, but it's the Adonim that are holding the sockets, are holding the kroshim in place. Only with the assistance of the Adonim do you have the whole tzura of the Mishkan. So this is really what's the underpinnings. What's keeping it all going? The Yesod of it all, the Adonim. Continues the Baal Turim. Keneged these 100 Adonai HaKodesh, Kenegdam Tiknu Mei'ah Brachos B'chol Yom. We have 100 brachas keneged what corresponding to these 100 adonim. Fascinating balaturim. Now, obviously, this is the son of the Rosh. This is a birthday present he wrote to his father. He came up with it in one night. One night, you can imagine the Ruach HaKodesh that was infused in every single word that came out of the balaturim. Rabbi said, let's go. Any Taka quotes? We have the Gemara Mem Gimel Amud Beis. Where's the Yesod of the 100 brachas b'chol yom? Let's go to the Gemara Bottom Mem Gimel Amud Beis, 4th parak of Menachos. Tanya, the Gemara cites a brayso. Hayir mei omer chayiv odem levorech Mei'ah brachos b'chol yom. Shenemar v'ata Yisrael ma'ashem lokecha shol me'imach ma. What's ma? So the Gemara doesn't go on to explain. So here we have Machlokas Rishonim. Rashi says, ever succinctly, Ma'ashem Elokecha v'chulei kari be'Mei'ah. Tahainu, it's a gather of Al Tikri, Ma Ela Mei'ah. So we have Mei'ah encoded, encrypted into this pasuk said by Moshe Rabbeinu. Bali Yatzoisa Sait Rabbeinu Tam has another way of learning it. Plus, there are 100 letters in this pasuk. Va'ata Yisrael Ma'ashem Elokecha. There are exactly 100 letters. 100 letters corresponding to the 100 brachas. Ve'yesh Ma is Ola and Gematria, and the Gematria of Adbash comes down also to Gematria of Mei'ah. Then he cites Rashi, and then he brings yet another Yesh Mefarshim. And there are other sheets in the Rishon as well. But Lamais, everyone agrees. This is the Makars. The Makars of Moshe Rabbeinu. And where's this taken from? Ata Yesod. This is Devarim Yud. This is Parshas Eikev. So listen to Hey Rabbeinu B'chai, we have one of the Gedolei Rishon, Rabbeinu B'chai, in his Encyclopedia of Torah Thoughts, the Kana Kemach Be'erech Bracha. So in the midst of talking about the Musogim that are connected to Brachos, right, Rabbeinu B'chai as follows, Dover Zeh, of a person is Chai V'odem Levarich Eisa Mei'ah Brachos every single day. Dover Zeh Min HaTorah, Min HaNaviyim, Min HaTzuvim. We have a Makor from every Chelik in Tanakh. Min HaTorah, a Pasuk in Eikev, Ata Yisrael Mashal Makel Shalom Imach. Kaf. V'yamro atakri ma elameya. That's Rashi's understanding of Menachos Mem Gimel. V'od timtza b'posek you have tzadi tes oisios. You have 99. Rabbeinu Tam told us there are 100 in Tosefes Aleph. Abima yalu meyos. It's a question how exactly we get to the number 100. Min Anaviyim. David HaMelech. Neum David Ben Yishai. Neum HaGiver. Hukamal. We have the pasuk in Shmuel Beis, the beginning of Perachov Gimel. Hukamal. All ayin lamed is gematria 100. So we have a remez David HaMelech. Min Aksuvim. We have David HaMelech tells us in Tehillim, Kuv Chav Ches and Pasuk Dalid. David tells us, Hine Kichein Yavarach Gava Yorei Hashem. Kichein is Gematria Mei'ah. Hine Kichein Yavarach Gava Yorei Hashem. Kichein is Gematria Mei'ah. Now that's very geschmack. Because what do we have? We have, it starts with the first remez in Torah is Moshe Rabbeinu Ata Shem Elokeinu. Ma Hashem Shol Me'imach Ata Kimol Mei'ah. What's the asmachta from the Chelak HaKsuvim? We go to David HaMelech and Tehillim. Kuv Chav Ches and Pasuk Dalid. Hine Kichein Yavarach Gava Yorei Hashem. Yorei Hashem is thinking, what? Kichein. Kichein is Gematria 100. So now we understand, and that's why. And many different svarim that talk about in Yoni Brachos, the Moshe, or Pinchas Bana, saying Brachos, the Agdama. We know that saying Brachos with Kavana, b'Messina, slowly, and with Kavana, Mitis Kavana, Ritzuya, it's a Gavaldige Skula for Yerushalayim. Of course it makes sense. Hine Kichein Yavarach Gava Yorei Hashem. Yorei Hashem, you're thinking, you're living, and you're breathing Kichein. Kichein is Ola Gematria 100. And we have the Gemara Brachos, the bottom of Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis. And what do we know from this very pasuk? Amra Chanina, Kobed Yishmei Chutz Yerushalayim, Shenemar Mata Yisrael Mashon Kel Shalom Ima Kim Liyira Alta Yerushalayim Milsos Zitrasi. Yerushalayim is such a small thing. What do you mean? Chanin Mashushim Nechai. Eino Krishvach Beis Kenozav Al Alta Yerushalayim Shenemar Yerushalayim Yotzaro In Legabe Moshe Milsos Zirah. Legabe Moshe Rabbeinu was a small thing. Legabe Klai Yisrael no. But Lamaisa, what do you see from this Gemara? The whole Indian of the pasuk Va'atis Hashem Shalom. What does he want? He wants Yerushalayim. So where's the asmachta? What do we learn? After Kimal Mei'ah, couched in a context bedafka of Yerushalayim. That's the first asmachta, and the Chelak HaTorah, the last one, the Chelak HaKsuvim. Hine Kichein Yavarach Gava Yorei Hashem. Amela, we see already clear cut remez a school for Emistik Yerushalayim is to say brachos, not stop to say brachos, but to say Mei'ah brachos b'chol yo. And then he goes on to say Gavaldika. He brings other Amazim. He says that's why David HaMelech, of course, he saw the Magei 400 Mei'ah Noshim were dying every single day in Yerushalayim. Tikkun lehem Mei'ah brachos v'chulei. But Moshe Rabbeinu was Yostam Tchila. So how do you make sense of what's going? Who was Miyased it? Moshe Rabbeinu was the first one to be Miyased based on the pasuk in Eytan. Then what happened? Achkar Shocham they forgot. V'chosu David v'Yostam. V'achas Moshe David Shocham Nochamo they forgot. And then Chosu Chochmei Talmud v'Yostam. But that's the idea, and it's not only mentioned by Rabbeinu Bachai. What's fascinating is the Chido writes in his Devash Lefi. Rav Chaim Yosef David was a lion is Devash Lefi, and that's coupled with Midbar Kedemus. He writes in Marachas Beis and Osei, Mei'ah brachos tiknei Moshe Rabbeinu v'shochum kshayu mesim kuf nefoshes b'yom echad chazer David v'signim v'gal shochum v'chazer chachmei Gemara. And saying he doesn't bring Rabbeinu Bachai, one of the Gedolei Rishonim, but who does he bring? One of the Gedolei Aposkim, the Ravan Hayarchi, Rav Avram ben Yarchi, who's the Baal Machaber Sefer Hamanig. He also had a Peirush and Kala Rabasi, many others for him as well. So the Sefer Hamanig writes in the beginning of a Sefer, that is exactly how we reconcile these. Apparently, what's the Makor? The Makor is Moshe Rabbeinu. Then Shachachom, then David was Miyased, Achazman, they forgot it again, and Memela Chochmei Agorim Miyased. He says, Devorov, Neumum Rishonim, Achronik, Moshekotsk, like I write to my Sefer, writes to Chidah, and Yosef Omen to Simon Nun, Yesh Litain Tam Moshekotsk, Rukeach. So he brings the Rukeach, one of the Gedolei Rishonim, one of the Bali Arames, Hamavarik Brachos from the 100 curses. What 100 curses? You have the 98 curses. Mei'ah Chosashtayim, bandied about Parshas Kisavo, the Tochacha. How do you get to 100? Because it says v'gam choli v'chol makeh shem kov. It says I'm going to save you from choli v'chol makeh. The 98 stated, expressed curses together with choli v'chol makeh. 98 plus 2, that's 100. Writes the Rokeach l'chein Moshe Rabbeinu Sharosha Yesod Nisar Miyavetochachos. He saw what Ata Mitzav from Rashi says. He saw that Harika Penechem. He said, how in the world are we going to make it? How are we going to combat these 98 Tochachos? He said, Ata Mitzav, you made it. Don't worry, you still stand. The result He says, Ma Hashem Shol Meimach. What is he asking you? You're so worried about the 98 plus the 2 Kocholi V'Chomakeh. You're worried about enduring the 100 curses. I got an easy solution for you. Ma Hashem Shol Meimach. Ma Hategri Ma'alameya. All you got to do is say 100 brachos every day. And these 100 brachos, Kohela, Zayin, Yadalit, Zelu, Mazal, Solokim. You're worried about the Tochos. All you need. And that's why David Melech knew that if I'm losing 100 people, B'shas the Magifa, how do you combat a Magifa? A manifestation of a Bechin in the Tochacha, Ayadei, the Mei'ah brachos. And that's why the Eibusher gave him a siman by having specifically 100 people die. B'chol Yom Yom. That told David Melech L'chari, you have to be Masakin 100, and it'll be the 100, connected the 100 I. But what does it mean? Not stop to say the brachos. It means, as we said, we know the famous Mei'ah, they say it about different Hasidic Rebbes. The Rebbe comes into the tish and he makes a brach, and it takes him 60 seconds, and he makes it with unbelievable kavanah that he musters up, and he has all the heilige kavanas, Alpi, the Ari, and the Ramak, and the Rashash for the Shem Hashem. And he says the bracha, and all the Hasidim, I'll look at the Rebbe's bracha, and then comes Yankel, the Chosik comes in, and he makes a bracha, and he's shuckling even more than the Rebbe, and he's saying it even longer than the Rebbe. And they said, Rebbe, what's the difference between you and Yankel? He made a bracha just like you. He said, the difference is a starke chilik. He says, Yankel makes a bracha in order to eat the apple. I'm only eating the apple in order to make a bracha. I don't need the apple right now. I want to make a bracha. Elawad, bracha levatollah. I can't stop making a bracha. I needed heichet timtzah called an apple in order to go make the bracha. That's the difference in the Rebbe and the Talmud. So Vaisa listened to an even higher madrega. We mentioned the past Rabbi Leib Steinman and heard the Mei'ah from Ben Bias, Rav Lipa Yisraelson, a grandson of none other than Rabbi Yosef Zatzal, who grew up mamish in the same building and is very, very close with Rabbi Leib Steinman. And he traveled with Rabbi Leib Steinman when he went with the Ger Rebbe throughout North America. That was one trip. He did another trip in Europe, and they were in France together. And he spent all day. He said he spoke in about 15, 20 places throughout the day. They just whisked him from one yeshiva to the next, one base Knesset, base Wenrish to the next. He posted. He didn't have time to eat. He didn't have a chance to eat breakfast, to eat lunch. He barely had a thing to drink. Now we know Rabbi Leib didn't eat that much. Somebody once, a kanoi, a zealot, was one time criticizing Rabbi Leib inside his house. And the Gabbai said, you're criticizing Rabbi Leib? You have the right to criticize one of the Gedolei Adar. He says, you eat more in one day than Rabbi Leib eats in an entire month. And he learns more in one day than you learn more in an entire month. You're going to criticize him? It's apples and oranges. So on the topic of apples and oranges. So you have the bracha and the apple. What's the reason you're making the bracha? So we think, I want to make a bracha. So I need to eat the apple. Rabbi Leib, he was on the plane and they were flying back to Eretz Yisrael. He came out and have a thing to eat or drink all day long. And Rav Lipa Yisraelson says, Rabbi, what can I get you? He says, I don't need any dinner. I just give me any 2 food items that I can make 2 separate brachas. But tell me, Rav Lipa, we're going to make it to Eretz Yisrael in time. If we're going to make it to Eretz Yisrael in time, I don't need any food. He says, Rabbi, what's your cheshbon? He says, I already made a cheshbon with all my ashayotzars, and I had a little bit of water, so I made a number of shahakos and all my tefillas. V'chula, he says, I'm already at the cheshbon. I'm at 98 brachas today, because every day I keep a cheshbon. So I'm getting to 100 brachas. I'm holding my 98. If we're going to get to that, so I can eat my own food, I'll be mashlim the Mei'ah brachas with my own food in my refrigerator when I get back to Bnei Brak. But if we're not going to get back to that, so before Shkia, just give me anything you got in the kitchen, any 2 separate brachas, so that I could get up to 100 brachas. I knew what? He didn't even eat. He was only making the brachas in order to get to the Mei'ah brachas. That's our Rabbi Leib. We're talking about Arichas Yomim. That's our Rabbi Leib's time. Is Echat Tzadik v'Kodesh L'Vracha. That's the Mei'ah brachas. So writes the Chidah based on the Rokeach, and that's what this is. Mekantochav's Musul Adam Yisrael. He says, if you think, he says, somebody is throwing out a bracha, he's not saying with kavanah, besides the Oda Shabo. He says, don't you realize if you're mechavein, you'll be nitzah from all the tochachos based on the Rokeach. 100 tochos, chocholi v'chomakya plus the 98. You got the Mei'ah brachas, that's going to be the way out. So Rabbi said, but Rabbeinu B'chai, Rokeach, yes, there are other Ramazim, but Lamai said, where's really the first Ramaz? And again, there are other Muslim, even going back to the Avos HaKadoshim, but Amalatur, where's the first smack we have before we get to Eikev? We have already in this week's Parsha Pekudai. We have the Masad Dodim, Kenegdom, Tiknu Mei'ah brachas. What does the Balaturim want? Kenegdom, Keneged Da'adek. What's the pshat? Lafini Yastaiti, what's going on is as follows. What did the Anei pass? What did the Adonai HaKodesh, as we said, The whole Yesod of the Adei HaKodesh is you can have a tzura, tavnis hamishkan, but it can't stay together without what? What's the glue that holds it all together? The adonim, the sockets. Without the sockets, there's nothing to talk about. The same way you can have evarim, as the Maral is marich in a few places. You have the Ramach evarim, the mitzvah saseh. You can't just do mitzvah saseh. It has to be coupled by definition with the lo saseis that it can get the gidim, shesah gidim, can get the shesah mitzvah lo saseh, not like Machos Chav Gimel Reis, can get the days of the year, but can get the shesah gidim, right? Zohar Kodesh, because all the Ivarim, there's no tsura without the Gidim, the sinews holding it together. There's no tsura of a Tavnis HaMishkan, Al Yadei the Kroshim, without the Adanim, the sockets holding it together. What's the Yesod? The Yesod of it all is the Mei'ah Brachos. Just like Yeroso Kodemis L'Chachmaso, just like the Yesod of the mentions, L'Olam Hey Adam, Yerei Shamayim. It's got to start with Yerei Shamayim. Everything's got to start with Yerei Shamayim. Before you get to Ava, it's got to start with Yira. It's got to start with Yerei Shamayim. So how does it start? The day's got to start. It's got to be built in the context of Brachos. The Mei'ah Brachos gives your whole day a tzura, a yesod. That's what holds everything together. The Mei'ah Brachos, it's a school of Yerei Shamayim, but it's the yesod of it all. What is the idea about? The chayra, it's very geshmak. The whole idea of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is Moshe Rabbeinu the one teaching us? Al pi Rameir, al pi Menachos Mem Gimel Mem Beis. V'ata Yisrael Ma Hashem Shol Meimach Ata Kimo L'Me'ah. So who's the one teaching us? Moshe Rabbeinu. Makes sense. School of Yerei Shamayim. Hine Kichin Yivach Gava Yirei Hashem. And Legabe Moshe Zitro, Legabe Moshe in Milsa Zitrose was a simple thing. I said, why was it a simple thing? Because what's Yerei Shamayim? Yerei Shamayim is the pshat that I'm held in awe by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I match myself up to the Gadolus HaBorei, and I see that I'm so minuscule, I'm so puny, I'm so overtaken by the Gadolus HaBorei. Writes the Meshech Chochmah Parshas Baloischa. Zok the Meir Simcha. I understand the Torah only talks about two milas of Moshe Rabbeinu. He's the Ab, he's the Golda HaNeviim. Zos HaBrocha. Let's fast forward. What do we have? Look, come Navi Yisrael Kamaisha, the greatest Navi. Okay, I understand. Zok the Meshech Chochmah. If the Torah Kedosha testifies he is the greatest Navi ever, you can't argue with that. He's the greatest Navi. Eibishter decides how much in Nevuah I'm going to give to any one individual. So once the Torah says he's the greatest Navi, there's nothing to argue. But Frektim Shachachma and Parshas Baloischa, hello, come. He's the Anav Mikolan Mashampani. He's the greatest Anav. How can you tell me he's the greatest Anav? Maybe there'll be a Yid who's going to work on himself, and over the years he's going to make himself a bigger Anav. Maybe he's going to spend all his life just working. The Chedush Yerush spent 17 years. He writes about himself getting kina out of his midst. Moshe 14 years getting kas out of his midst. Let's say you have a Yid who lives 120 years and he works 24/7, 365, and still it can't be. It's midas. Midas. Because the only way to get to the Gadolus of Anivus is what? The greater awareness you have of the Gadolus HaBorei, and when you compare and contrast yourself, your puniness, your smallness, l'umas, the Gadolus HaBorei, the one who has a greater cognizance, a greater awareness of the greatness of the Eibishter, by definition, recognizes how far removed they are from the Gadolus HaBorei, and he draws the starkest of all contrasts to see how puny and small he is. So the Tuli and Mahadadi, they're interdependent. By definition, the greatest Navi, Sukkah Memheyam and basis saw the Eibishter Bas Bakari Amira. By definition, he's going to see the smallness of himself. That's why the Tuli and Mahadadi, the greatest Navi, is by definition the greatest Anav. Now it's Kishma. How do I know he's the greatest Anav? What did Chazal tell me? Avram Avinu Gevaldik Anochi Alpha Vefer David Anochi Talas V'loish. But there's only one person together with Aaron who said, "What? V'nachnu ma? V'nachnu ma? What are we? We're nothing. We're garnish and garnish." That's the Anav that he was. Lo magia li klum, lo magia li shum davar. How do I know the Gadolus of the uniqueness of Moshe Rabbeinu's Anivus? What do we see from Chazal? Avram Avinu, Anochi Afar, but at least he's what? He's Afar Vefer. He has some minuscule measure of worth. Anochi Talas V'oish. It's only Moshe Rabbeinu says, Nachnu ma, I'm worth zero. I'm the greatest Anav. Lo magia li shum davar, lo magia li klum. Everything that comes my way is given. Nachnu ma, I'm nothing. What am I? Ma, hey, I know that word. We just had him. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one to say, Ata Hashem, Ma Hashem, Shomimo. What does he ask of you? Atu Gimol Lemeya. What's the Mei'ah Brachos? Because lo magia lushum davar, whatever you're getting in the world, fake HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why Modim is Gematria 100. Can I get the Mei'ah Brachos? That's why the Megala Mukas writes in Ofen Memtes, Gevaldig Megala Mukas. What do we see and tell him? The first pasuk in Kapitel Tzadi, Moshe Isha Elokim. Moshe Isha Elokim. Zok the Megala Mukas is Rosh Tevis. Mei'ah, what's the essence of Moshe? Mei'ah, Moshe Isha Elokim is Rosh Tevis, an acronym for Mem Aleph Hey. Zok the Megala Mukas, that's Mei'ah. Modim, that's to complete his batlus be'ofen muchlet be'yoser achna gemura muchletas to the Eibishter. That was what Moshe Rabbeinu ha'yidei v'nachnu ma. So it's very geschmack lafini yestaiti. He's the one to say ma Hashem shomima. Just live a life of ma lo magia li klum lo magia li shum davar. That's Moshe ish Elokim. Moshe lives a life. Everything is coming achvarat from the Borei Olam. And achnu ma. He's the one to teach Klai. So ma Hashem shomima. All he asks is ma. What's the ma? Ma's the Mei'ah. That's the Yesod of the Bria. Mamela, that's the Yesod of the Mishkan. The Mishkan never shachayim shalala pergdala. Now go. It's all to teach us a lesson. We have to be a microcosm and bring the Shekhin into you. How are you going to bring the Shekhin into you? You got to make yourself what? A kli that's ready to be makabel the Shekhinah. Moshe ish Elokim. He's an ish. How does he become ish Elokim? He brings the Elokim inside of him. Becomes the greatest Navi ever. How do you do that? You have to learn the model from the Mishkan. What's keeping the Mishkan together? The Mei'ah Adonim. The Mei'ah Adonim is like the Baal Turn. Keneged the Mei'ah Brachos. We don't have Mei'ah Adonim, but we have on a microcosmic scale the man. The mensch is what? Build yourself up. What gives you the tavness? The tzura is the Yesod of the Amun and the Yerushalayim. That's deduced from your Mei'ah Brachos v'chol yom. That's your miniature Mishkan. That's what's keeping you going. That's how Moshe got to his madrega. Moshe Elokim Gematria Mei'ah, Modim Gematria Mei'ah. That's Ma to Kimal LaMei'ah. That's what's holding us together. And let's go into the week. Let's be makbet to get the Mei'ah Brachos v'chol yom, and let's end all the magefas and all the nega and all the tzaras and think about his man of only simcha tamidus. Gavaldig Nacht and a great rest of the weekend.